What's up, Wizards? It's Dev from the place. We got PowrDragon, our favorite guest here on the channel with us, and we are here to talk about something pretty fun. You guys have suggested, we've already done this one time before, but you always suggest that we go back over our over and underrated picks, and we've decided that we are going to make tradition out of that. This is the second time we're doing it, to my knowledge. And if you want to look at all the stuff that we called underrated in Tarkir Dragonstorm, then kind of check our math on that. You can go over to PowrDragon's channel.
Yeah, you can make fun of us a little bit, but I think overrated. We hit it. We did a great job on overrated cards.
I actually think that I kind of crashed out on overrated cards.
I think only on two. Only on two. Maybe.
But you know exactly which ones I'm talking about.
Maybe only on two. But as I'm saying, as a pile of our 10, we did pretty good.
It's like I would rather, in a lot of ways, say that a card is bad and it turns out to be good. Then say that a card is good and it turns out to be bad.
Absolutely.
So I don't mind necessarily missing these so much, but I will say the couple that I missed, I fell flat on my face. And I do think there's one that you missed more than the others, but we'll get to all of these.
Sure.
We'll start with the one that that I chose for my number 5 here. My number 5 most overrated card in Tarkir Dragonstorm is a card that has found a home in Commander for sure, but not standard, and that is Nature's Rhythm. We're mostly talking about standard with this card. Does elves use it? Blah, blah. None of that actually happens. But I think this is a playable commander card, so depending on your perspective, you could call it a miss, but we both wanted to kind of review this for standard, and it has been dog water in standard so far.
Yeah. So. Dude, I've seen a couple of opponents play it against me, and one time it was good. The others was just like, okay. You know, obviously, if you get it in elf deck and, you know, they don't deal with your like Archdruid or whatever, then like awesome.
Yeah.
That's kind of the only spots for it. Like, I mean, I think the issue for this card largely is that you don't need a lot of bodies if you can go get one good body, right? And Collector's Cage says there's a chance you're going to have a pretty high hit rate on one of your, let's say, 8 things you're trying to hit. So you don't need to spend that much mana. And you only need a couple of creatures or a token out on the battlefield to trigger the Collector's Cage. And it has upside for just 2 mana. Right? Like, I think that's really the issue. I don't know. Nature's Rhythm, while neat, just it has the right words to make you excited.
Yeah.
But I think we were totally right, and it just didn't do that much. And at one point during the previous season, I remember I had people argue with me over that card.
Yeah, I've had people argue with me over this too. Yeah. They thought that it was going to go get Craterhoof in the Elves decks and make Elf Ball playable again, and it's too much.
But there's easier ways to go get a Craterhoof.
Exactly. You don't have to worry about that. Like, I would often rather just, you know, it's easier to cast the Craterhoof with my Archdruid than it is to cast this and go get the Craterhoof and blah, blah, blah. It takes up too many slots in your deck, and it costs too much mana. And basically almost any creature that you have to pay 2 extra mana value for, you're making that creature kind of way worse. So I stand by everything we said about the card in standard, while acknowledging that apparently this is like the 9th best selling single from this set. From what I've heard, at least. So people are playing in Commander, but they ain't nobody jamming this in standard. I have yet to see this card even, you know, attempt to resolve. I have yet to see this card put on the stack.
Yeah, so, and let me say this for Commander, putting my Commander format panel hat on, you know, so yeah, by the way, I have a video. It's probably not out yet by the time people watch this, but I am going to be doing a video reviewing all the decks or the favorite decks of the Commander format panel members, so people know what people making the rules actually enjoy playing. So that'd be a thing.
Actually, sounds awesome.
That being said, I'm with you. Nature's Rhythm in Commander makes way more sense, right? Because you only have one of everything. So if you need a certain card, great. It doesn't matter that you're paying a couple more mana for it because you need that answer, right? You can go get that one thing. But that's just not how standard works right now. And you often just don't have the time to go get it.
And I saw people talking about this in kind of a toolboxy deck that does play one-ofs, but we're just not really in that standard right now.
Yeah, we're just not.
No.
You're just not.
Now, your first pick on the overrated list was, you definitely got it right. This is Keru Goldkeeper.
Man,
right here.
Of the 5 cards I talked about, this is the one I was second most proud of being right on. Because
a lot of people tried to fight both of us on this one too.
Dude.
Yeah.
So many people are like, oh, but you can combo, you can do this, you can do that. I'm like, okay, cool. You're naming like a 5-card Voltron Magic Christmas Land
Right.
goofy scenario. Like, it's just not that. And I tried. I built a couple different graveyard decks with it. You know, I tried building some weird dragon quirky things with it. And ultimately, it was often the first or second card cut of almost all the list. Or if I
Yep.
had to swap things out, it was the one that always got pulled. It just did not. But it was, and I think I said this in that video of like, it was costed just the right way to not be abusive.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't, because of that, it just also was barely just not good enough in a lot of cases to do what it wanted to do. Now, again, in the future, maybe you find something where you reduce the cost and now you got it into play and you're making all the treasure, possibly. But yeah, to this point, I don't see a world where that's going to happen.
I haven't even been putting my goofy shoes on when I build Sultai. You know, I've just been trying to build these like Sultai value town mid range decks, like Sultai likes to be, and like you said, this is the first thing that gets cut every time. Like it makes sense in theory, but God, what am I paying 4 mana for this? It's ludicrous. So yeah, you kind of really nailed it in on that one. This again might be a commander playable card, but this is just a bridge too far for standard.
Yeah, I think that when I look at it even now, it's one of those things where if it's ever playable in standard, like significantly playable in more than like one fringe combo-y deck, it needs a card that we don't even know exists yet. You know what I mean? Like we don't even know what the thing is, but we know it needs something else. Yeah. So it's one of those things. I guess we'll know it when we see it, but it's definitely not around right now.
It's like one of those things that even if you get it to work, it's like, okay, a treasure token. You know what I mean? Okay. Kind of not as big of a deal as it seems. So, but my next pick here was Sage of the Skies. Now, on our underrated list, I pointed out that I think Dragonologist deserves like one notch above neutral because that card saw a lot of play in the early Jeskai Dragons decks in the format and then dropped off over time. You could actually say the same thing about Sage of the Skies in multiple decks in standard. It saw a little bit of play early. People were trying to play like dump the 2 of in their deck, and now it sees 0 play whatsoever. So I guess that's like half of a miss, but in the long run, no one's playing Sage of the Skies, you know?
You know, I would say that I think this is still a hit because we're talking about cards that were overrated, overhyped, or whatever. And I think this was one of the ones that was overhyped, right? Like people were saying, oh, this is going to be in this deck and we're going to be able to play in the double spell deck and you're going to be able to play it in this thing. Or, you know, the prowess decks are going to do this and that. And like it showed up a couple of times, but it wasn't the super impactful thing. It didn't always get a second copy. And it just over time fell off, right? It just wasn't one of those cards. So it definitely, while it was at least playable for a little while, it definitely did not meet the hype of the time.
It's one of those things where if you're playing planes or white sources or whatever in your deck, then you've got Biza and Overlord of the Mistmoors at the same mana value. And if you are trying to play like a Jeskai Corey Steel Cutter, just cut the white. This costs too much for the Corey Steel Cutter deck, and it's literally the deck it's meant to go in, a sort of, you know, flutter deck or whatever that ability's called.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's meant to go in those, and it still doesn't. So yeah, this was not very good.
Yeah, it just wasn't. It's a neat card, it's playable, but it's not hype worthy.
No,
you know.
No. Now this next one, your next card on the list, I think is your only potential miss. Yeah, but
I was gonna say, if there's one we're going to call a miss, this is the closest one you could call a miss.
Yeah.
And
it's a United Battlefront.
Mostly because I will say this for the card, right? The deck that it shined in, it was very good. Yeah. If you're talking about like
Simulacrum Synthesizers,
exactly the Azorius Artifacts deck, right? Like it was really good in specifically Azorius Synthesizer. But everywhere else I saw this card pop up, it really wasn't all that.
Oh, like, no.
I would even argue. I played it in a deck, man, by the time this video drops, like a week prior, and it was the least fun I had playing a card in a deck. Like, and it missed, it either missed or got cards that weren't as impactful as you want it to be.
Yeah.
More often than not. In nonsense, because in the synthesizer decks, the difference is you have a bunch of things that are ETB, do a thing. You can also sacrifice those things to go get a thing. Some of those things are also have an ETB ability, but then also make a golem. And you know, like there's a bunch of things happening. Like other decks that are playing it just don't have that level of impact. The next closest thing were some of the Boros, mid-rangey, whatever kind of decks, right? Where you can go get like
Urabrass Forge,
yes,
Caretaker's
something
Talent.
like that,
Yeah.
and like maybe get a card after getting your two things, and hopefully your next couple turns are set up. But those just weren't as impactful
Yeah.
overall.
Those are the decks that I feel like people were most excited to play the card in. People were thinking, oh, this brings back the red, white Forge decks. And it really didn't do that. There's a couple of other things. I saw people talking about this in Collector's Cage, but the only real hit in the deck is Collector's Cage. So why the hell would you do that?
Yeah, that
it's
doesn't
just,
do anything.
yeah. And for what it's worth, the Azorius synthesizer decks didn't necessarily take off that much. I'd say that's like a B tier deck in standard. You see it
Yeah,
in MTGO
it's super
leagues.
popular on the ladder, like
Yeah,
on
it's
arena.
on arena a lot. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll
there's a
play it
reason.
against it at least like once a day.
Yeah, it's something. Yeah, exactly. At least once a day, which makes it a pretty popular deck, and it's even on the ladder, not just in like non-ladder play. You'll see people play this in Mythic, and you'll see people play it in MTGO challenges. There was a version
Oh
even
yeah.
with Repurposing Bay that got like second place this
Mhm.
season. So again, like if there's a miss, it's probably this one, but it's not a huge miss. It's not like this card revolutionized standard or anything.
Oh
It's
no,
just in kind of a B tier deck. You
I'm
know
just
what I
saying
mean?
that was the closest to a mess. I'm calling this a hit for overrated because the hype on this card was high.
Oh, yes, it was.
Like,
Yes, everyone thought this was Collected Company, and it's
yeah,
not.
and I remember even saying specifically, this is not Collected Company, right? Collected
Yep.
Company was an instant speed thing. We could do it in your turn. We can go get a whole variety of creatures. We can do a billion different things. This was not that.
Nope.
And I think that was proven out because we only ended up with one deck that could use it effectively that still had any wheels after the first 2 weeks of the season.
It's like my next pick here hurts me, and it hurt me to put it on the list to begin with. It's Ugin Eye of the Storms here. This is another one where if you want to judge playability based on how often you see it on the arena, this is another card I see maybe once a day or once every 2 days. But this has not really done anything in real, again, big girl, let's pull our pants up, standard play. Haven't really seen it in too many challenges. I've seen it in a couple of League 5.0s, but that's kind of the bottom rung of the playability ladder. I'd say that this is in like D plus tier decks, and so I would say that this is probably a hit. Even though I will say I do see this on the arena from time to time, and I've played it a bunch. I think it's a fun Magic card, but it doesn't actually win the game by itself, which is, I think, our problem with it to begin with. And that has borne out. You can get an Ugin on the table, and my thought was that people would just kind of scoop to it, but they don't because they know the card is technically inevitability, but it's not the kind of inevitability you have to scoop to. So it just hasn't been that impactful.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because when the card does hit, it's really strong,
Yeah.
right? Like, I don't think there's any denying that. They're like, when it hits, it's really good. It's just how often do you see it and how often does it hit?
Yeah.
Like, if there's anything I would say in favor of the card is that we did get some quality colorless cards in Final Fantasy that could go in those same, because you got like Ultima, Bahamut, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, there's some good stuff there that if you want to play a bunch of the artifact ramp and things like that, like, sure.
Yeah,
But
technically the creature version of Ultima like ramps you too, so that that could work.
But let's also go back and remember when we talked about this card, it was over $60.
This card was really expensive
at one point, and we were like, "There's no way," right? And now it's a more reasonable, like $35 ish.
Okay,
and I'm like, okay, that's fine. You lost like $25 or whatever, but at least more reasonable if you were going to pick it up now. And that's probably where it is. Probably could go as low as 25-ish, maybe.
I'd be surprised. Honestly, I'm surprised it settled so high. I thought this could be like a $10 card. I really did.
It's still a popular casual card, popular commander card. So it's going to carry, and it's still mythic. So it'll carry some weight for a while. But yeah, overall, while the card is still good, this falls in that category of, we know what thing's playable. We know once, it hits the battlefield, you're going to have trouble dealing with it. But I think in some people's mind, maybe at the time, could also be why the price was so high, that we were equating it to some of the old Ugins.
Yeah.
That were so dominant, like that 9-mana one. Like, yeah, it's just crazy.
It's like, right? I've literally got a copy of Ugin the Ineffable on my desk here.
Yeah, even that one was good.
That was a playable Ugin, right? But
yeah,
this one,
So I'm wondering if maybe that was part of the issue where some of the hype came from. Like, I don't really know. It's kind of hard to tell. But I'm with you. I think it's I'm willing to say that is, of all of them, probably like fine. It's still a
Yeah.
hit because while it's still playable and we know the card is still good, it was not the runaway hit everybody thought it was going to be.
Yeah. I think that your next two picks are maybe the biggest hits in the video, though. I got to give you some credit because your next pick was the Sibig Ceremony, which has seen some play in Commander, like some of the other stuff we've talked about. It enables a lot of infinites in Commander. This has done diddly poop in Standard, and I imagine it will continue to do diddly poop. You know,
Bruh, like I people wanted to fight me through the internet over this card. Like I kept telling people, like, I get it, I understand, but and it still has the same problem right now, is that when you build the deck, a lot of the decks were having to be built with subpar cards to take advantage of when you have the Sibig Ceremony. But also the Sibig Ceremony is also legendary.
Yep.
So it's not like you could even have two of them out and get multiple tokens or do any of that stuff. So it just never worked. Like you just got run over by all kinds of things. You had to craft this weird scenario to make it work. And then when you didn't have the ceremony, you just had worse cards than your opponents.
Yeah. That's the thing. Sometimes it's okay because synergy will allow you to play some not great cards in order to make a card really good. But it's like you said, you have to play all these mediocre cards to make an already mediocre card work. You just got a bunch of not great like interactions in your deck. If you draw any of them without drawing the other pieces, then they're just bad. It's way too color intensive. You have to skip an entire important turn to get it down. And there's just too much in a competitive 1v1 environment. There's just too much going against this card.
And I know what happened early on. Some people, even afterwards, people saw the video after they'd watched like the early access. Like, I think you're so wrong about the Sibig Ceremony because this person did this. I'm like, yeah, but you saw like the best case scenario for the card, right? Like, this is not what's going to happen every day with the card. And sure enough, I don't even think I see Sibig Ceremony even once a week. Anybody playing it. I don't even think I can remember the last time I saw somebody play it against me.
I think towards the beginning of the season, one person resolved this against me, lost the game, and that's the only time they lost, and that's the only time I've seen this card ever. It's a cool card. It's exactly the kind of card I like for like aristocrats, commander decks. This is my jam, but it's not necessarily my bread or butter. There's just better ways to win a game of Magic.
Hell, I would say if there's anything that surprised me about the card, I don't even know that I've seen a breakout older format deck with it. Was where I thought it might shine. Somebody would go in the lab and come up with something crazy for it.
A bunch of indestructible creatures and a combo, but no,
there was just nothing.
Yeah, I think that people were excited about this in Modern and Pioneer because, Walking Ballista, Hanger Backwalker, and Stone Coil Serpent, and like all these zero cost creatures that, create 2/2s when they come into play and they don't cost any mana. But like at that point, you paid 3 mana up front to get a bunch of free grizzly bears. Like, okay, it's not really that big of a deal, So
and to put it in perspective, when we talked about this, it was $5. You can get copies for 50 cents now.
Wow, it's that much. It went that through the floor. I thought Commander would kind of hold this up, like some of the other cards we've looked at that are still like $2, but no.
No, there's nobody needs them. Like, what are you going to do with them?
Well, you're going to set up a Phyrexian Arena and like a Blood-Soaked Champion, and you're just going to get like infinite mana or whatever. You know what I mean? Like infinite 2/2s. There's a lot of Commander combos with it. All the combos are Commander, but I figured it would hold some value because of that format, but I guess not, Aristocrats is getting wild lately. It doesn't even need cards like this. I'm actually mad. Just a very quick aside. I'm mad about Aristocrats because it used to be a really fun little budget deck. And then like Bolas's Citadel came along and, you have to play, all these tutors in the deck now. But now we get Sepharoth is in this set.
Yep.
Final Fantasy, the most expensive card in the set. And it's like a dream for Aristocrats decks. And there's like 2 other cards like that are kind of expensive in the set, but you have to play them in Aristocrats. I'm so mad. The land, the town that
that's a good one.
Yeah, it's a village rights on a land. Like you have to play that. It's $10. It's ridiculous. But your next pick, my next pick. This is probably, I think, the actual biggest miss on the entire list.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, pretty sure. This is Karsi Revenant. Now, to my credit, I guess, if I had to kind of lobby for myself here a little bit. This card didn't see too much play at the beginning of the season. It's only
True.
in the last month, the last
Yeah,
half
probably
of the
last 3 to
season.
4 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, that this is really seeing play, but people are jamming the crap out of it now because it's ridiculous for a lot of reasons. This will help you combat those Corey Steel Cutter decks, all those really fast decks in the format. There are multiple sort of graveyard-centric strategies that can take advantage of the card. It goes well with some other creatures in its own deck for obvious reasons. Just really, I will admit to the miss on this. It's not like it's a 4 of or anything, but it is showing up in basically any decks with swamps nowadays. And I have to accept the miss for sure.
The funny thing about it is, I remember even at the time thinking, like, all right, this is playable, could be borderline good, but I mean, we weren't playing that much of the Vampire Nighthawk as it was.
Yeah.
And it's just like, all right, but 3 power and getting to use it out of the graveyard. Like that graveyard element of Renew was so good on this card,
Massive,
as it turns out. And
yep.
And again, I think it also was a matter of the way the format went. And when you're talking about having to battle the Izzet aggro decks, the mice decks, you know, especially dealing with the flyer in those decks is always a big deal. The fact that you could block, gain some life, and then set up another lifelinker with flying right after that.
Yep.
Actually turns out to be really big. You know,
it's a way to make your big like death touch or your big 4-drop creature that you're playing even better. Because like you said, you can kind of trade Carsey and blocks, gain a little bit of life back, and then put these counters on a Sheldred or an Archfiend of the Dross or something. And it matters greatly. Like when you put lifelink on a 6/6 flyer, it ends the game against aggro. So this has really come along. I think my point at the time was, is this better than Gix or Preacher of the Schism or the card I can't remember anymore because this was better than it. Oh God,
Gix,
Preacher of the Schism,
yes.
Gix.
Preacher of the Schism, arguable.
Oh, Unstoppable Slasher. This has replaced Slasher in a lot of builds. People still play Preacher, but this has replaced Slasher a good bit. Just because it's.
But all
better.
3 of those cards still great.
It also works well with Unstoppable Slasher, by the way,
Yeah.
because you put flying and lifelink on Slasher, it's more likely to get through. So the cards work together well. It's just I have to suck this one up. I have to. This was it's not the best card in the environment or anything, but it shows up.
Still
and it
not
shows
a bad
out.
hit rate though.
No, not all in all. Not all in all. Sometimes you take a swing and you miss. It happens. But your next one was a pretty confident pick. It was Baitor Kin to All, which people were kind of confused about. This is a pretty obvious commander card for your command zone and commander. This is obviously not a standard card, but a lot of people thought that it was.
Yeah, and I just didn't understand it at the time. You know, I had people talking about, well, you could play it in this type of deck. You can play it alongside like Lumra, and you can do this. And I'm like, okay, sure, but all right. I mean, like
exactly.
like I can play a lot of things. You know?
Ways.
And don't get me wrong, I did play a couple of decks of this on the ladder, and it is a playable card. I will say that. It's not like it's completely useless, but it wasn't like this, you gotta play it if you're playing these colors, right? There's other still quality options. There's even other dragons you can consider. Like, it's a fine card, but definitely was not hype worthy. But I will say an interesting thing about the card is that it kind of held its value the whole time. Like, it hit that like $11 to $15 range, and it sort of just stayed there.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Again, that's all commander, right?
Like, yeah, it's gotta be. You know,
well, right now you can get a copy for about $4, which is way less than I would have assumed you could get a copy for. That's kind of insane.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the special version or whatever that held its value. But yeah, if you want the regular ones, yeah, for sure. But even then, like I said, it hit its value even there. I think that when we talked about it, it was around like the $8 or $9 range, I think. Yeah. And now you're saying, down to 4 to 8, depending on where you pick them up at. But
like, that's still a pretty penny, sort of. I mean, it's not 50 cents.
Yeah, it's not crazy. Like, it's a solid value card still if you want to pick it up for your deck. So there is that. It does have its commander value. But as far as standard, I think I've only even seen this cast against me twice, I think.
I don't think it's ever been cast against me.
And then, I've played it in 2 different decks and had some fun with it, and it was fine. But that's kind of the most I can say for it. It's a fun card. It's playable, but definitely, like, I don't know where all the... Plus, the hype of like, oh, your opponent loses whatever it was, like half their life and whatever. Like, I only even hit that a couple of times, even with the deck
Yeah.
built to do it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It was neat. It was
And even
fun, but
even
that's
if
it.
you hit that, like it literally does not end the game.
Yeah.
You know, it's just half their life. Who cares? So I don't know. I'm with you on that one all the way. I was with you at the time, and I'm even more with you now because you were 100%. This is not a standard playable card.
Yeah, it's just not. It's not the card. Like maybe that's where I was wrong. Like it's at least standard playable,
Yeah, I guess.
but it's not gonna be, you know, a
I mean,
top end game winner or anything.
in the way that like every card is technically standard playable. You know what I mean? Like you
Well, I
could
mean,
play it in
when I say
standard.
playable, at least it has some impact on the game when you play
Right.
it. You know.
I'll give it to you. But my number one card here was, it's gonna look weird. It's gonna look like no one was talking about this card, but this was the most talked about card in my comment section in previous season. This has way too many comments on the Reddit post on the MTG Reddit about it. And there were both Draft Sim and MTG Rocks articles about this card. It is Ambling Storm Shell, a just awful Magic card. Now, I will say we played this on stream. We played a sort of Simic Turtles deck, and we murdered the first game. And I think Storm Shell was part of that, whatever. We played 5 more games and lost every single one of them with the Simic Turtle deck. But when we did play Storm Shell, it was a fine card, but it's still just a meme. It's a meme card in a meme deck that is just, I don't think, capable of doing the things people thought it could do. I mean, it's a ward creature with a high toughness, kind of tough to deal with, should draw you 3 cards, but are you really you're just cool with paying 5 mana at sorcery speed to maybe draw 3 cards next turn? That seems terrible, and it is. So this doesn't look like it was that hyped, but I swear to you it was, and it didn't deserve a scrap of it. So
Yeah, I mean, I think even at the time we had just seen, for some reason, I think like one of the Spider-Man cards previewed
yeah, it
that
goes well with one of those.
reference like stun counters.
Yeah,
So like,
it takes 3 counters off of a thing,
yeah.
and this gets 3 stun counters, so it's supposed to work really well with that Spider-Man.
So like,
But it's, who cares?
maybe
It's not
in the future, I don't know, but even then, you're talking about exactly one deck that's probably going to play it.
right. And this thing's like still 5 mana. You know, I just
Yeah. And the thing is, it was like 50 cents when we talked about it. It's like 25 cents now. So like nothing's really changed on this card. It's exactly what we thought it was going to be. It ultimately did nothing. I've never seen one even cast, honestly. And you're talking about somebody who literally is on Arena every day, practically.
Yeah.
Like never
like,
seen
I
it
think
cast.
I might be the only person on Arena to have ever resolved this card. Seriously. So
It can't be more than a handful of people.
Yep.
Like, I'll tell you that.
There's probably another content creator out there who's done it. I've never seen it with my eyes, my old eyes. So I just don't feel like we have to spend too long on this one. This was not gonna see play,
wasn't it?
As much as people tried to fight me on it too, it's just not. I don't know what people are seeing. I still don't, but
I still don't. I'm with you.
Yeah, yours made a lot of sense. Yours, you know, sometimes we either go for a card that we think is going to, people are talking too much about. And in other times we go for the card that everyone is talking too much about. And that was your game plan this time around. You went with Mox Jasper, and you have never been more correct in your life.
So. Literally, again, another card, if I remember right, 2 times I've seen this card cast against me. One time it literally did nothing. Like, so I'm just like, I don't know what people saw in this card or why we thought this was going to be a thing. Again, if anything, if it gets played, it's mostly because it's a 0 cost artifact and maybe you're trying to combo, you need another artifact to sacrifice, you need to trigger storm count or something. But almost didn't matter that it was worrying to help cast your dragons. Like more often than not, when I saw it, even when I just put decks together to kind of practice draw and whatever, it was just like most of the time when I could use it, I didn't need it. Right? I'm at 4 or 5 mana already because I cast a dragon. So why do I just need one more?
That's part of the problem.
Right?
It's not like the big part.
Yeah, the other Moxes turn on where you either one, you know, the old ones obviously just make mana. But the others, it's either like, oh, I just have to have 3 artifacts, or I need to discard a land, or whatever. And then I'm just advancing my mana. There's no way to advance your mana with this because it doesn't do anything unless you already have something else that you spent mana on 9 times out of 10.
So I have also seen this precisely twice. And once I saw it in a kind of like big red Sarkin deck with dragons, the 2-drop Sarkin. And it wasn't like super impressive there, although it made sense. And then the one time that I've seen it actually kind of do something was I saw one player playing it in Corey Steel Cutter and like really early versions of that deck. This has been resolved against me, and I did get them their like Corey Steel Cutter guy the same turn they play Cutter, and that's really cute that it's a 0-cost artifact that helps you double spell for those flutter decks, whatever it's called. I've already forgotten the name of the ability, but I have seen it used that way. But even that, like, okay, you're able to activate that ability. It literally does nothing else the entire game. It's a wasted slot. Talk about opportunity cost. I don't care that it's 0 mana. Your cards still have to do something. Like that was, you basically drew on turn 1, and if this card's in your hand, you have 1 fewer cards in your hand because it kind of doesn't do anything. And I agree. I think this is kind of a card for the Commander Dragons decks, pretty obviously. If we got some low to the ground dragons in standard, we might be talking, but we really like don't have any.
I mean,
there's
there's like one junky one, I think, from Foundations. It's like a 2/2 flyer, and like when you play a dragon, it like deals a point to your opponent.
A dragon or a non-creature spell.
Yeah, something
it's
like
that
guy.
But
even that, it's not good enough to play is the problem. So you like this card, and I remember most people saying, "Well, you got to pay attention to a card when it says Mox." I'm like, did you not learn your lesson from Mox Tantalite? No, we don't.
I swear to God, the last like 4 Moxes we've gotten, Moxen, whatever, have just been kind of like disappointing. And people still fall for this, like, oh my God, this is Mox. It's like, yeah, so.
And this card,
plenty of cards say Lotus and they're bad,
People forget this card was going for like between $30 and $40 on a lot of sites.
There was a point this card was $50.
Yeah, just crazy. Yeah. Like
it's now $11.
It's just bananas. I literally, this is the one that I went, I'm a person who likes playing dragons. Oh, and I for real could not justify this card. And people were like, well, what about this? Or what about that? I'm like, yeah, those are all contrived scenarios. Those aren't real. Right? That was always the thing. It's like, give me the real regular scenario where you want to play even 3 copies of this card. I'm not even saying 4.
Yeah.
Like, hell, or even just 2, and you don't mind them taking up some space for the potential upside.
This really shows how many newer players we have, because a few years ago, just a couple of short years ago, we got Mox Amber, which is basically the exact same design, but it only taps if you have a legendary out. It is so much easier to get a legendary out than a dragon, mana value wise. And Mox Amber saw 0 play in standard. Never saw play.
It got played in the combo-y deck that cared about having the dude that cares about having extra legends and you can play stuff out of your yard or whatever. But that's literally the only deck. No. I don't
remember that. Yeah. I remember the Slowgurk deck, if that's one you're talking about. But Mox Amber had already
that was actually fun. But no. But really, even then, you're talking. If it's only one deck, that still doesn't justify it, really, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, not the hype for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the point is, like, if Mox Amber wasn't super playable, then like Mox Jasper is just right out. You're not going to play that card.
because you have so many legends that are 1, 2, and 3 mana that make it super easy to justify it. But like, the best thing you can do on turn 2 for the dragon decks was either play the 1/3 that makes all your dragons cheaper, or play Sarkin that makes you the treasure to cast your dragons. Neither of those is a dragon.
Yep, exactly. The real thing this card is probably waiting for in standard, and I only bring this up because someone will say it in the comments section if one of us doesn't say it here, and it'd be right to say it. We do go back to Lorwyn soon. We do get changelings. So if there's 1 or 2 like 1 mana changelings, maybe. But even then, I don't know if that would make it that playable.
It's not. I argued that too. Like, if so, it actually ends up being playable in a non-dragon deck. Right? Like, you're playing it because there's some good 1 or 2 mana changelings, and you just get to ramp up to cast other things. You probably don't even care that they're dragons.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, I would assume that if this isn't a changelings deck, it's just in a changelings deck that might incidentally play 1 decent dragon.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
But still, I assume even then we'd have to get like 2 playable 1-drop changelings. We'd have to get more than 1, and they'd have to actually be worth putting in your Magic the Gathering deck. So that's a tall
something better than the like weird thing, the 2/1 we have now that like filters mana or whatever. Like
yeah, exactly. So like it has to be more than whatever Changeling Outcast is like a 1 mana more or less unblockable Changeling they've already printed. Let's say they reprint that and like one other 1 mana Changeling, then maybe, but even then, I don't know, dog.
But
I
yeah,
just don't know, dog.
overall, I think
So,
we did pretty good on our overrated cards, though. Like,
yeah, I think we both had like one kind of big miss, but mine was bigger than yours, Carsey Revenant.
yeah,
Yours was United
but that's
Battlefront.
literally it. You know, like I
That's
think we
all.
did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think we usually do a pretty damn good job around here.
There you go.
You know, but anyway, that was all for Tarkir Dragonstorm. I always want to call it Dragons of Tarkir, but that was all for Tarkir
we already
Dragonstorm.
did that once.
Yeah, that was years ago, man. But yeah, that was all for our overrated list for this set. Again, if you want to see the underrated picks for Tarkir Dragonstorm, go over to PowrDragon's channel. See, I think I may have already asked, but just to reiterate, because I do this at the end of videos for my own YouTube stuff, where can the people find you at? What stuff are you up to recently?
Oh man, I have a billion different things going on the channel. Like I said, I have a fun video coming out for the Commander format panel stuff, probably about a week or so after this goes live. But you can go over to PowrDragon, PowrDragn. And if you're new, because you might be checking these out just to learn the format, maybe you're new because you were a Final Fantasy fan and you got brought into Magic, you should check out my other videos because I have stuff to prep you for going to pre-release as well. Just search pre-release on the channel. You'll find some fun stuff there.
Nice, man. Yeah, we're hoping to put out a pre-release guide, but I would probably rather watch PowrDragons than mine anyway. So go check out PowrDragons. He's always got good pre-release stuff going on, like guides and whatnot. And he's just got good daily content. You want to see a guy that can play some Magic and build some decks? That's PowrDragon, and he does it every day, like 3,000 videos so far on his channel. So
like if you can't find a deck to entertain yourself on my channel after basically a different deck almost every day for the whole season, I don't know what to tell you.
I don't think that you are the problem in that case. You know what I mean? But anyway, before you get out of here, do all the YouTube stuff as usual. Make sure you hit the thumb button. It is shaped the same way a thumb is, so it's really hard to miss. The subscribe button, it pops off fireworks and stuff when you hit it, so maybe do that. We're trying to get to 150K by the end of the year. We can do it with your help. Apart from that, I do have a Patreon. It's just $1 a month to get started, and with that $1, just that's all it takes. With $1, you can vote on what content we're doing this Final Fantasy season, from commanders that we're going to build to standard decks. Believe it or not, there are standard playable Final Fantasy cards. But anyway, y'all, that's all for this one. I am Deb from the place for PowrDragon at his place. Well, actually, he's at the place right now. You guys don't know, but we're actually in the same room. We're achieving this effect.
The magic of technology.
Exactly. Anyway, guys, I'm Deb from the place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.